Let me be honest with you for a second, like we're just sitting side by side and nobody else is listening. You've probably been told your whole life that if you like a woman, you should go after her, put in effort, show her how much you care, and never give up. Sounds right, doesn't it? That's what movies, friends, and even social media keep repeating. But here's the uncomfortable truth that most people won't say out loud. The more you chase, the less she values you. Yeah, it sounds backwards. It almost feels unfair. But think about it. When something is always available, always trying to prove itself, always seeking approval, does it really feel valuable? Or does it start to feel easy to ignore? A lot of men fall into this trap without realizing it. You text first every time. You reply instantly. You rearrange your schedule just to be available. You overthink every message, every interaction, trying to win her over. And instead of building attraction, what actually happens? She pulls away. She loses interest. And you're left confused, wondering what you did wrong, because from your perspective, you were doing everything right. Here's the shift you need to understand. Attraction doesn't grow from chasing. It grows from value, presence, and self-respect. When you chase, you communicate, without saying it directly, that you need her more than she needs you. And that imbalance quietly kills attraction. Now, this doesn't mean you should ignore women or act cold. That's another mistake. The goal isn't to play games. It's to stop putting yourself in a position where you're constantly trying to earn someone's attention. Because the truth is, attraction works best when it's mutual, not forced. In this video, we're going to break this down in a simple, clear way. You'll see exactly why chasing backfires, what it signals, and most importantly, what actually works instead. Because once you understand this, everything changes. You stop feeling desperate, you stop overthinking, and you start showing up as someone women naturally feel drawn to. And trust me, this isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about finally understanding the rules that were never clearly explained to you in the first place. 1. Why chasing makes you look less valuable, even if you mean well. Let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever tried too hard with someone and somehow it made things worse instead of better? Like, the more effort you put in, the colder they got? It's confusing, right? Because in your mind, you're thinking, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. But what if that's exactly the problem? Here's where it gets a bit uncomfortable. When you chase too much, it doesn't come across as confidence. It comes across as a lack of value. Not because you're not valuable, but because of how your behavior is being interpreted. Think about it like this. In almost every area of life, the things that are hardest to get tend to be seen as more valuable. Whether it's a limited product, a high-status job, or even someone's time, scarcity creates importance. Now flip that around. If you're constantly available, constantly reaching out, constantly trying to prove yourself, what does that signal? It signals that your time isn't that valuable, that your attention is easy to get, that you're willing to lower your standards just to keep someone interested. And the truth is, people pick up on this without even thinking about it consciously. Now, here's the part most guys get wrong. They think, so I should just stop caring? No, that's not it. The issue isn't caring. It's over-investing too early. When you barely know someone and you're already acting like they're the center of your world, it creates an imbalance. You're giving more than what's been built. And instead of feeling special, it can actually feel overwhelming or even uncomfortable for the other person. Let's make it simple. Imagine someone you just met starts calling you all the time, texting nonstop, always trying to be around you. Even if they're a good person, at some point you'd start wondering, why are they so invested already? It raises questions. It creates pressure. And that's exactly what happens when you chase. Another thing to understand is that confidence is often shown through restraint, not constant action. When you're okay taking your time, when you're not rushing to prove yourself, when you're not afraid of losing someone, that communicates strength. It shows that you have options, that you have a life outside of this one person, and that you're not dependent on their response. Chasing does the opposite. It quietly says, I need this to work. And neediness, no matter how well hidden, tends to push people away. Now, this doesn't mean you should become distant or uninterested. The goal is balance. You show interest, but you also give space. You engage, but you don't overextend. You let things build naturally instead of trying to force them forward. Because at the end of the day, attraction grows when there's curiosity, space, and mutual investment, not when one person is doing all the chasing. Once you really understand this, you start moving differently. You stop trying to win someone over, and you start focusing on whether they're matching your energy. And that shift alone, that's where real attraction begins. 2. The hidden message you send when you're always available. Let me paint a quick picture for you. Be honest with yourself when you hear this. Your phone buzzes, it's her. You see the message instantly, and without even thinking, you reply right away, every time. No delay, no pause, no sense that you've got anything else going on. Now, on the surface, that seems like a good thing, right? You're being responsive. You're showing interest. You're not playing games. But here's the part most people don't realize. Being constantly available sends a message, and it's not the one you think it is. The message isn't, I'm a great guy. The message is, I don't have much else going on. And again, I know that might sound harsh, but stay with me. Attraction isn't just about how much you like someone. It's also about how your life looks from the outside. When you're always available, instantly replying, always free to meet, always adjusting your plans, you're unintentionally showing that your time revolves around them. And here's the problem with that. People are naturally drawn to those who seem to have a full, engaging life. Not because they're trying to be impressed, but because it signals independence, purpose, and confidence. Think about someone who's busy, not in a fake way, but genuinely. They have things going on. Work, goals, hobbies, friends. When they make time for you, it feels intentional. It feels like you've earned a spot in their schedule. That creates value. Now compare that to someone who is always free, always ready, always waiting. It doesn't feel the same. Another thing that happens when you're always available is this. You remove any sense of anticipation. There's no mystery, no buildup, no time for someone to think about you, wonder about you, or even miss you. Everything becomes predictable. And predictability, especially early on, can quietly kill excitement. Let's make this practical. If every time she texts you, you respond within seconds, every single day, what happens? She starts expecting it. It becomes normal. And the moment you don't respond quickly, now it stands out in a negative way. But if you naturally have a rhythm, sometimes quick, sometimes later, depending on your day, it feels more real, more balanced, more human. Now, this doesn't mean you should start ignoring messages or deliberately taking hours to reply just to seem busy. That's not the goal. The goal is to actually have a life that doesn't revolve around one person. Because when your focus is on your own growth, your own priorities, your own direction, you're not thinking, when should I reply? You're replying when it makes sense. And that shift changes everything. You come across as grounded, not reactive, interested, but not dependent, present, but not overly eager. And here's the key takeaway. Attraction grows when someone feels like they're entering your world, not when you're constantly trying to enter theirs. So instead of asking, how can I be more available? Start asking, am I building a life that people naturally want to be a part of? That's the difference. 3. Why effort alone doesn't create attraction. Let's get something straight right from the start. This might go against everything you've been told, but it's something you need to hear. Just because you're putting in effort doesn't mean you're building attraction. I know how that feels. You're showing up, you're trying, you're being consistent. In your mind, effort should count for something. It should mean something. But then you look at the result, and it doesn't match what you expected. And that disconnect, that's frustrating. Here's the truth. Effort only works when it's backed by value and timing. On its own, effort can actually work against you. When you're constantly trying to prove yourself, constantly trying to show how much you care, it can come across like you're trying to earn a position in someone's life. And the moment it feels like you're seeking that approval, the dynamic shifts. Instead of being seen as someone attractive, you start being seen as someone who's trying to be chosen. That's a very different position to be in. Because attraction isn't built on convincing someone. It's built on how someone feels around you. And if your actions are coming from a place of, I hope this is enough, that feeling translates, even if you never say it out loud. A lot of men get stuck here because they believe effort is the main thing that matters. So they double down. More attention, more messages, more trying. But what they don't realize is that effort without self-assurance starts to feel like pressure instead of interest. And pressure doesn't create attraction, it reduces it. You've probably felt this yourself at some point. When something feels forced, when someone is trying too hard to make something happen, it doesn't feel natural. It feels heavy, and naturally people pull away from that. Another thing to understand is this: effort has the most impact when it's reciprocated. When it's mutual, it builds momentum. But when it's one-sided, it creates imbalance. And that imbalance is what causes attraction to fade instead of grow. So the real question isn't, am I trying hard enough? The real question is this being matched? Because if it's not, then more effort isn't the solution. Now, this doesn't mean effort is useless. It just means effort needs to come from the right place. It should come from confidence, not from uncertainty, from desire, not from fear of losing someone, from choice, not from the need to be accepted. When you operate from that mindset, your actions feel different. They feel lighter, more natural, less forced, and that's what people respond to. So instead of measuring how much effort you're putting in, start paying attention to how it's being received and whether it's being returned. Because at the end of the day, attraction isn't built by how much you give. It's built by how things flow between both people. 4. How needing approval pushes people away without you realizing. Let's be real for a moment, and I'm saying this calmly, not to attack you, but to wake you up a bit. A lot of men don't actually struggle with attraction. They struggle with needing approval too much. And the problem is, most of the time, you don't even notice you're doing it. It shows up in small ways. You start overthinking what to say. You adjust your opinions to match hers. You avoid saying something you actually believe because you don't want to mess things up. You're constantly checking if you're doing the right thing, saying the right thing, being the right version of yourself. And without realizing it, you stop being yourself. Now here's the issue. When you seek approval, you hand over control. You're no longer grounded in who you are. You're reacting, adjusting, and shaping yourself based on how you think you'll be perceived. And that creates a subtle tension. Because instead of interacting freely, everything starts to feel calculated. You're trying to get a certain response. You're trying to be liked. And even if your intentions are good, that energy comes through. People can feel when someone is looking for validation. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Needing approval often lowers how you're perceived, not raises it. Not because there's anything wrong with wanting to be liked, but because it signals uncertainty. It signals that you're not fully confident standing on your own. Now let's pause for a second. This is where you need to check yourself honestly. Are you speaking because that's what you truly think? Or are you speaking because you hope it gets a better reaction? That difference matters more than you think, because attraction isn't built on perfect behavior. It's built on authenticity and stability. When you're grounded, when you're okay with being yourself, whether someone agrees or not, it creates a completely different presence. And this is where the advice comes in. Simple, but not always easy. You need to stop putting people on a pedestal. The moment you start seeing someone as above you, you automatically position yourself as trying to earn your way up. And from that point on, everything you do is influenced by that mindset. You start performing instead of connecting. Wake up to that pattern. No one you're talking to is above you or below you. They're just another person. The moment you truly understand that, your behavior changes naturally. You stop chasing approval and you start expressing yourself more freely. And here's what happens when you make that shift. You become easier to be around, more relaxed, more real. There's no pressure to impress, no constant need to prove anything. That's what draws people in. So instead of asking, do they like me? Start asking, do I even like how I'm showing up right now? Because the less you need approval, the more naturally attraction has room to grow. 5. What actually works. Building attraction without chasing. Let's bring everything together now, because at this point, you might be thinking, all right, I get what not to do, but what actually works? Here's the shift, and it's simpler than most people expect. Attraction grows when you focus on your value, not on trying to secure someone's attention. That's the foundation. Instead of chasing, instead of overthinking every move, instead of trying to say the perfect thing, you start showing up as someone who already has direction, standards, and self-respect. And that changes how everything feels. The first thing to understand is this. You don't need to force attraction when there's alignment. When two people naturally connect, things flow. There's mutual interest, mutual effort, and a sense of ease. Your job isn't to create that through pressure. It's to recognize it when it's there. So what does this look like in practice? It starts with how you carry yourself. You're not rushing. You're not trying to prove anything. You're present, you're engaged, but you're also grounded in your own life. You have priorities outside of this interaction, and you're not afraid to stick to them. That alone creates a different kind of energy. Next, you focus on clear but balanced interest. You're not hiding how you feel, but you're also not overwhelming the situation. You express interest when it's genuine, and then you allow space for the other person to respond. You're not filling every gap, not forcing constant interaction. Because here's the key: attraction needs space to breathe. When there's room for someone to think about you, to wonder about you, to come toward you on their own, that's when things start to build naturally. But if you're always the one initiating, always the one pushing things forward, that space disappears. Another important piece is standards. When you stop chasing, you naturally start paying attention to how the other person is showing up. Are they consistent? Are they engaged? Are they matching your energy? And if they're not, you don't try to fix it. You recognize it. That's a major shift. Because instead of trying to win someone over, you're deciding whether the situation works for you. That mindset alone changes your behavior in a powerful way. You become calmer, less reactive, more selective. And finally, there's this: you get comfortable with uncertainty. You're not trying to control the outcome. You're not forcing things to go a certain way. You're allowing things to unfold, and you're okay with whatever direction it takes, because you know your value doesn't depend on one person's response. And that confidence, it shows. So when you put all of this together, it's not about doing more. It's about doing less, but with more intention. Less chasing, less over-investing, less seeking approval, and more presence, more self-respect, more awareness of what's actually being built between both of you. Because at the end of the day, what actually works isn't chasing, it's creating the kind of presence that people naturally don't want to lose. Let me leave you with something that might sound a bit uncomfortable, but it's something you need to really sit with. If you constantly feel like you have to chase someone, they've already made their decision about you. I know that's not easy to hear, but think about it calmly. When someone is genuinely interested, you don't feel like you're fighting for their attention all the time. You don't feel like you're guessing where you stand. There's a level of clarity, even if it's subtle. So if you're always the one pushing, always the one trying to make things happen, always the one overthinking, at some point you have to stop and ask yourself, am I building something real? Or am I just trying to hold something together on my own? Because those are two very different situations. And this is where everything we talked about comes together. It's not about becoming cold. It's not about playing games. It's about respecting your time, your energy, and your attention enough to not give it where it's not being valued. That shift alone will change how people respond to you. Now I want to hear from you. Seriously, have you ever been in a situation where the more you chased, the worse it got? Or maybe you pulled back and suddenly things changed? Drop your experience in the comments. I actually read them, and I'll reach out to some of you directly. Not just to respond, but to really understand where you're coming from and help you see things more clearly. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about attraction. It's about how you show up in your own life. And once you get that right, everything else starts to fall into place.